program. We're continuing with the North Carolina delegation. Representative Addison McDowell, thanks for joining us.
You got it, my friend. Good to be here.
By the way, Dr. Murphy says you owe him a bill.
Oh, good God.
I should say we could never blame you for the Affordable Care Act because you were like 15 when it passed.
That's exactly right.
The shutdown. We've been going over this. I mean, it's obviously topic A. We've been doing other things. We were going over Speaker Johnson's, pointing out that a lot of the funding that the Democrats are trying to protect are for like international transgender programs and health care for people in the country illegally. They denied the second part of it, but watching even CNN, the polls are showing people don't believe the Democrats anymore.
Well, no, they definitely don't. And here's the thing. When there are participation trophies given out, there's no winners and losers. And then those people grow up to become members of Congress. They don't understand that elections have consequences. And when you lose them, you don't get what you want. And the American people were very clear exactly what they wanted us to do based on the election outcome last November. And Democrats have now voted 14 times to keep the government closed. And I mean, House Republicans, we did our job and we voted to keep the government open. But I'll tell you exactly what we're not going to do. We're not going to be held hostage by Chuck Schumer and his band of liberals that want to give $200 billion to illegals for health care. They want to give billions of American tax dollars away for foreign LGBTQ theater programs in Malaysia and all kinds of things. And then they want to get rid of all of the great things that happened in the working families tax cut that we passed. And I mean, we were getting back on the right track. We were working for families, for farmers. We were cutting red tape for businesses, and we were ridding our government, which was long overdue, of waste, fraud, and abuse. And I mean, the Democrats just don't understand that elections have consequences, and the American people rejected them.
I have a clip of Speaker Johnson, if you don't mind. I want to remind everybody what he said yesterday. Play cut one.
Things like $4 million for global LGBTQI plus awareness campaigns around the world. $4 million for the LGBTQI plus democracy grants in the Balkans. They want $2 million for feminist democratic principles projects in Africa. We're not doing that. But again, the question is why? Why? This sounds crazy. It is. Why would they do this? And what we saw on vivid display over the weekend was the re-emphasis of this fact. This is motivated purely out of fear. And what do we mean by that? You saw the Democratic leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, endorse Zohran Mamdani for mayor of New York City on Friday. It was an illustration of what we're facing here. The Democrats right now fear the far left activists more than they fear air traffic controllers, border patrol agents, American service members, and so many others missing their paychecks. They fear the Marxist insurgents like Mamdani more than they fear families and children going hungry from lapsed benefits that keep food on their tables. They simply fear losing their own political positions next November if they don't appease the angry far left base right now.
I only disagree with one part of that. I think the speaker's off. I think it was 4 billion with a B, not 4 million.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats, they lack one thing, and it's very important, this thing that you need to have in life, and it's self-awareness. And I look at all of these Democrat senators who continue to vote down every bill that comes up that will keep the government open. They are mistaken in thinking that any of the working families in my district that they're using as leverage for a political game give any cares about who they are or they don't care about you. They don't think you should be the president. They don't know who you are. What they do know is that the Democrats in the Senate and every Democrat in the House that voted against this clean funding bill don't care about them, and all they want to do is use them as leverage no matter how much it hurts their families. And so, the Democrats have been very clear about where they stand. Chuck Schumer has said, every day of this is getting better for us. Well, guess what, Chuck? It's getting worse for the working families in my district that you're taking things away from to give billions of dollars to illegals for healthcare. I mean, that is just insane, and they don't have a message. They don't know what they want to do. They don't have a plan. All they know is they hate Trump, and they're working on embracing Marxist ideologies like that we've seen in Mamdani. And so the Democrats are lost, and they're hurting the American people, and they need to stop this game and open the government.
Let me ask you something. There are a handful of millennial members of Congress. You, AOC, Maxwell Frost. Do any of you guys, do you discuss this with them at all? Like, do you like commiserate around age?
No, and I honestly, I don't love that you just compared me, or at least grouped me with those two knuckleheads. But we don't, and I don't have anything in common with socialists. I don't have anything in common with people that all they care about is being famous and climbing up the ladder, because I'm not here to do any of that. I'm here to do one simple thing, and it's exactly what people elected me to do: represent them in Congress to the best of my ability. And no, I certainly don't go out of my way to talk to them because they hate us. They call us Marxists, or they call us fascists and Hitler and all of these things that are not true at all, and they put us in danger. And I think the millennials that I know on our side of the aisle, like Brandon Gill, like Brian Jack, those are the kinds of people that care about this country, and they want to get things done, and that's what we're doing. But no, I don't often find myself speaking with Maxwell Frost or AOC.
I asked that because, look, my kids are Gen Alpha, and with all of the spending, and look, Republicans, long before you got there, were also partly responsible for it. I'm not giving anyone a free pass. The
Sure.
Democrats keep talking about the vulnerable, the low income, the mid income, yet every child born to those demographics are being born with ever more debt. How do you think you're going to raise people out of poverty if you're saddling, children and the unborn with debt?
Well, let me be very clear. What we did in the working families tax cut was we made all of these programs better by getting rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse that the Democrats have been letting run rampant in these programs for many years. And the result of that was that the programs weren't good. They weren't working for the actual people that needed them. And so for the Democrats to cry foul and worry about the vulnerable, yet they then don't want the programs to actually work for who they're intended to work for. And then they voted to shut the government down, so those programs are now going to run out of money. When Republicans voted to keep the government open so that they didn't run out of money, I would really think long and hard about who it is that actually cares about people and cares about this country. And to me, it seems very clear that it's the Republicans.
I just, for the life of me, I look at this party, and do you mind if I ask you about how fentanyl has affected your family?
Not at all.
Because I see Democrats, they talk about the vulnerable, they talk about low income, and yet they don't talk about the Americans that have lost their lives because of the open border. And they're not talking about the struggles of Americans because, and we just talked about this, your colleague is a doctor. I said, they keep talking about healthcare as a human right, and Bernie screaming and yelling about long waits to see doctors. Well, if you bring in 20 to 40 million people and you give them waivers and Medicaid, but we haven't really increased the number of doctors, you want to know why low-income Americans they're getting a smaller piece of that Medicaid pie for every illegal that's here, plus the drugs that are coming across the border with the human trafficking.
You're exactly right. And there's kind of two things here, right? One being the financial implication of the country. That when we have to subsidize all of these folks that are here illegally because states like New York and California are spending money that is meant for American citizens that actually need these programs, when they're spending it on illegals, the programs deteriorate, and they're not as good as they're supposed to be for the people that need them. So there's that on one side. On the flip side, and today is a very difficult day for my family and me. 9 years ago today, we lost my little brother to a fentanyl poisoning, and I didn't hear a single Democrat in the course of the 9 years since that took place. I didn't hear a single one of them talk about, we ought to secure the border and stop this fentanyl from flowing into our country. They didn't talk about that. And that's exactly why I got up and decided to run for office, because it was families like mine, and I knew that there was more and more each day that felt just insulted by Democrats who didn't want to do anything about a problem that was killing men and women in our country at an incredible pace. And so it's disingenuous. They're hypocritical, and it's really difficult to try to work with them when they're not even on the same planet as us in terms of what is and what isn't reality.
How do you see? I keep asking every member, how do you see this ending? Because look, November 1st, that's the end of SNAP benefits. What next? I mean, I live in New Jersey. We have the election coming up. I don't know if the Democrats are holding out to see if that's a bellwether for them. But what you said, 14? I thought it was 13. So now we're up to 14 votes to open the government, and the Democrats can't tell us what they're really holding out for because they know it would be really unpopular.
Of course they do, and they don't have a plan. They've never had a plan since, all they know right now is that they hate President Trump. That's all they have. That's all they can run on, is that we don't like Trump, Trump bad. And they don't have a message they can articulate, so they make things up. And it's a bunch of lies that the American people are not going to buy. And so to answer your question, I don't know when this is actually going to end, because I have done my job. I voted to keep the government open. I will continue to do that every time it comes up. But we did our job in the House. We passed this bill out of the House, and it's been bipartisan every time we voted on it, including Republicans, Democrats, and even an independent. So this is the far left being afraid of their base. And, I don't understand their logic behind any of this. I never have. And so it's kind of hard to speculate about when they're actually going to say, you know what, we're done holding the American people hostage. We're done harming working families across this country. I don't know when they say enough is enough, but it is just an absolute despicable thing that they have decided to hold the American people hostage, to use them as a political pawn. It's disgusting.
Yeah. And the sad thing is they're not holding out for a single American priority. They're holding out for these international transgender programs and people in the country illegally. I mean, that's it. What else is there?
You're exactly right.
All right.